not what we're doing right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Sandro Linux community podcast. If you're watching, are you streaming this, Pigus, on your end?
I'm waiting.
You're waiting, okay. So, let's see, is this currently
It's
streaming?
now starting, yeah.
Yeah, now it's starting. That is good. Hello guys, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Today we will be covering the tech news as always. It is the 19th of January, and of course it's a Friday, so yes, that's good. And the button, we can talk about Pigus getting a new mic in the show, just because, why not? and yeah. Any library stories you want to mention before we get started, Pigus? Anything in the library community you think should be talked about?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's moving kind of slow now.
Yeah, there's apparently something actually going on in the Library Foundation chat right now, but I'm just gonna go back on over to our Discord voice channel. What's it called? But yeah, so hello, womp womp, or however you want me to pronounce that one. So yeah, so let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to the Sandro Linux community podcast. It is the 19th of January, 2024. So of course we've already had a couple podcasts since the new year, and we have some news this week as well. So Google may be integrating AI into messages, according to a 9 to 5 Google APK breakdown. So basically, they took a look at the APK and they said, yeah, this appears to have references to Google Bard integration, and so that's the reason why, they know this. So why don't we just start off with that story? It is not actually the first story in the notes here, but I will cover it as the first one, given it is the one in the title. So Google is preparing for this Bard messaging integration. So of course, other apps have already integrated AI into them. So, for example, Microsoft have been integrating AI into all sorts of different pieces of software with Bing Chat and Copilot. And now it appears that Google are trying to do similar, except with messages here. So this could be pretty helpful for some people. I could kind of imagine that people might want AI assistants to just check over their messages, maybe improve their messages, and give a little bit of feedback as a kind of a bit of a third party, I guess. So that's a pretty cool thing. However, of course, there is the privacy aspect here, that it's not really great for privacy having your messages sent off to Google servers and reviewed by Bard. Let's say you said something in those messages that could be used against you, then Google could, of course, try and investigate that. And yeah, they might be forced to as well. So they do warn you before you use Bard in messages that your messages will not actually be fully private if you use Bard in the messaging app and you trigger Bard. But of course, some users just won't read that. They'll just hit agree, and then they'll just suddenly have their chats kind of exposed to this AI and sent to Google's servers. So overall, it's a kind of it's good. However, on the other hand, it's not good for people's privacy because they're gonna end up with a lot of chats that they being sent to Google servers, and some people may not realize this is happening when they're using Bard, and so I could see, a potential for this going slightly wrong. But yeah, what do you think, Piggis?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's in general just a bit. It's like it's a cool feature, definitely. However, I'm not really sure about the privacy implications of this. Trying to integrate AI into messaging.
I mean, yeah. It is a very cool thing, especially like being able to just ask it to write messages for you.
Yeah, yeah. As long as it
Uh,
writes the correct message, and you don't end up sending off
mhm,
some random message that you didn't mean to somebody, that could end up ending badly.
yeah.
However, of course, if you use this tool properly, it could be pretty helpful. However, of course, you just need to be careful what you're sending to an AI. It is Google servers this will be sent to, most likely. And yeah,
Mhm.
you just need to be careful with that, I guess.
Yay, AI everywhere now.
Yay! It's almost like, there might be some motive to this. It isn't just, great, yeah, it's almost like there might be a motive to this that isn't just providing for the greater good of humanity. Maybe it's money. Anyway, but yes, yeah, so, we'll just have to see what happens with this barred in messages thing. And yeah, it does look pretty interesting. However, we don't currently know when this will actually be implemented in messages, or whether it will actually be implemented at all. Of course, it's quite likely that it will be implemented. However, this is only in the APK, the actual app file, right now. It is not actually a fully implemented feature yet. So we'll just have to wait and see when this actually comes to users. Now, moving on to another AI story here. So, Microsoft is making its AI-powered reading tutor free. So, this is a reading tutor app which effectively allows you to, kind of look at English words and read them, and yeah, learn how to read English. So now this was previously not a free tool. However, now it's available, no cost to people who want to use this reading coach app. However, some people aren't such a big fan of AI-powered reading coaches. Some actual teachers might have something to say about this. Of course, that there is a place for this kind of tool, I think. However, whether it's the best tool for learning, that's not really something for me to say. However, it is pretty cool that that Microsoft are allowing people to use this tool for free. So even if you don't, have any money for a reading coach, you can use this this Microsoft tool as long as you're on Windows. What do you think, Piggis? Yay or nay on this then?
Yay.
Yeah, it is a pretty cool feature, to be honest. It's a pretty cool thing to allow people to have this practice. Maybe English isn't their first language, or maybe they're just young or whatever. Yeah, this could be really helpful for some people, and it will be interesting to see if they bring this to other languages as well. Because it appears I haven't fully looked at the full details of this when it comes to other languages. But if they did end up rolling out support to other languages, that would be pretty cool. But yeah, right now it appears to be mainly English. However, I imagine them bringing in all sorts of different languages in the future. Any other thoughts, Piggers?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool story. It's quite a nice one. It's much nicer than some of the layoffs we're talking about later. So yeah, this is a nice story, to be honest. This is pretty cool from Microsoft to be allowing people to use this AI reading tutor. Now, moving on to the next story here, the EU is calling for laws to force greater algorithmic transparency for music streaming platforms. So, I feel like we've seen this one before, sort of. I mean, governments have been saying they want more algorithmic transparency before. However, now the EU are trying to do something about it here. Although there is no actual legislation being implemented here. So, nothing's happening yet on this front. However, it is quite clear that the European Parliament, may do something about this. It may become more of an issue. But yeah, for now, I think we'll just have to wait and see what the EU ends up doing with this. Because yeah, they're talking a lot about, trying to be more fair with artists, trying to give them more revenue, a better revenue cut, and being more transparent with algorithms. Of course, these are things that many people would agree with. However, we'll just have to see how this is implemented on the actual policy front. What do you think, Pigus, about this change? You're in the EU and I'm not. No thoughts? Okay, let's continue on. So the next story here, Samsung has apparently revealed that their Galaxy AI is powered by Google Cloud. So Google Cloud, a pretty popular cloud platform, and Samsung have actually deployed their AI using Google Cloud. So it's pretty cool to see them actually implementing some of Google's tech for their AI. Now, of course, everybody's trying to get into the AI game these days, so it's not surprising seeing Samsung partnering, sort of partnering up with another company to try and, make an AI product. Because, yeah, it's really the trend these days. However, we'll just have to, I'm not really sure what this Galaxy AI will be like. We'll just see, I guess. Do you have any thoughts, Pigus, on the Galaxy AI? You don't have a Galaxy, you don't have a Samsung phone, do you?
No.
Yeah, neither do I. I've never owned a Samsung phone, so... my experience with Samsung is quite limited. Aside from installing the Galaxy Store before, on my phone, just because I wanted to see what it's like. I've not really had much experience with Samsung, but yeah, this is a pretty interesting, and who knows what will happen with this. Yeah. But yeah, AI everywhere. Anyway, let's continue on to some non-AI related news. So we are now in the iPhone section. So this is sort of an iPhone story, sort of not an iPhone story here. So so this is, so the Apple Watch Series 9 and Ultra 2, have lost blood oxygen monitoring in the US. So, of course, there's been this case in the courts recently in the US over this potential patent violation and Apple's request to kind of stop this import ban. Yeah, apparently, the US Appeals Court just rejected them. So yeah, this isn't good news if you wanted a Apple Watch with blood oxygen monitoring support. And of course, Massimo, they are trying to actually properly enforce their patents, and that's fair, I guess. However, it would suck if you bought one of these thinking that you were going to get blood oxygen monitoring and then it's not there. Because, yeah, it was quite a heavily marketed feature of Apple Watches. However, of course, because there's a patent violation here, they've just had to disable it within their watches. So now, if you open up the app on an affected watch, it just won't open the actual, it just won't actually work. So yeah. Do you have any thoughts, Pigus, on the Apple Watch situation here?
Not really. It's
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for a bit now, and Apple, of course, were gonna try and fight this as best as they could. However, of course, it does not appear to have worked here. Anyway, moving on to the next story here. You know, the previous story didn't really affect anybody outside of the US. However, this is an interesting one. So, iOS 17.3 release candidate has been released to the developers. So, apparently, this is going to be a public beta at some point. There's not really that much new added here. There's some minor changes, mainly some stolen device protection, which, yeah, effectively adds just some extra protection to stop your device from being stolen. You know, a bit self-explanatory. You can read a bit here about, you know, about the fact that it adds an extra layer of security to your iPhone. But yeah, the other thing is that they have implemented a new wallpaper, so there's now a black Unity wallpaper. So yeah, you can now use those wallpapers if you have this release candidate and use these new features. However, there don't seem to be that many new features. So really, you should probably just wait for the open beta, unless you really just want to, or the actual, you know, stable release, because unless you really want to test out stuff for Apple, you know, see how your app works, maybe, if you were, wanted to, you know, help people with their iPhones, I suppose, you know, you could check out if there's any bugs in it or anything. I suppose you could do that. However, if you're not a developer, there's no need probably to update to these betas, because these features will end up in the stable release at some point. Do you have any thoughts, Piers, on this release candidate for iOS?
no.
Okay. So continuing on here to a bit of a more interesting story. Not really good for the app developers though. So effectively, Apple are now allowing you to actually link third-party payment platforms. However, apparently, if you apply to be able to use the StoreKit external purchase link entitlement, yeah, and you get rejected, then you will be severely restricted when it comes to your alternative payment methods. And apparently, the actual fees on these external purchases basically make it more cost effective to just use the Apple built-in in-app purchase model. So of course this is really just Apple trying to kind of dodge having to actually implement proper third-party payment apps, you know, support in third-party apps. So yeah, this is really just another way of Apple trying to hold off regulators, try and convince them that they have fixed the problem, even though they haven't here. And overall, you know, it's just another way of Apple trying to pretend to have fixed their third party, you know, their anti-competitive practices, and actually not doing so. Do you have any thoughts, Piers?
No, I mean, it's just the same thing they do all the time. It's not surprising.
Yeah, it is what they do all the time, and it does start to get kind of irritating. Just watching Apple and Google just to try and find more and more ways, especially Apple, to just get around different regulations and try and, of course, try and make as much money as possible, which is, of course, their aim. But yeah, it is sometimes a bit tiring seeing these kind of stories. And of course, for an app developer, this is an absolute headache. If you don't want to use the Apple in-app purchases, you're going to have a lot of severe restrictions put upon you. And overall, the best hope for developers, I feel, is potential third-party app support in certain markets. Because if you don't want to use Apple's App Store, I suppose you could use a different store. And, maybe that might be a good alternative for some developers. However, we'll just have to wait and see what markets actually have that. Because right now, the EU have talked about it and are close to, implementing third-party App Store support. But in other markets, such as the US and, the UK, it doesn't appear to be a thing that's happening. So we'll just have to see what happens with different rulings and different legislation, and what happens with these big tech giants. Now, moving on to a bit of an Android story here. That is not what I meant to copy. I meant to copy the link, not the markdown. So Techno's foldable Phantom V2 Fold has popped up on Geekbench here, so you can see it in the JSON file. So it's here, and they have, they're basically going to release this new phone, probably at MWC 2024, which is in Barcelona this year. That's in, I think it's in March. Not March. February. So we'll just have to see what happens with that conference, because it'll be quite interesting, I feel. There'll be some interesting announcements when it comes to phones, and it's always cool to see the new products. So maybe we'll see some new phones that will be quite interesting, and when that does happen, I will make sure to actually cover it on this show, because I give the tech news each week, and that would be cool. However, for now, we can just see some basic specifications for this device, and we can only wait to see what happens with this new foldable from this Chinese company. Do you have any thoughts, Piggis? Still no thoughts? Okay. So, so that's cool. Let's continue on to, continue on to the next story. So this is in the other OS's category. Really should have either put it under Android or, Harmony OS, I guess. Because, this is quite big news for Huawei here. So they're showing off their new Harmony OS next. So it's got a new UI design, some new features, and apparently they're also dropping Android app support in China, but they will be keeping it internationally. So if you are if you're worried about your Huawei phone, don't worry, you won't end up losing Android app support, at least not yet. And of course, the majority of Huawei's customers are in China, so, the majority of the market will end up with their losing this Android app support. However, for Western users, they won't end up losing third-party app support. So yeah, it's cool to see that they are actually implementing some changes here, but they aren't actually removing Android app support in any market outside of China. But yeah, we'll have to see whether that actually stays like that, or whether they start rolling out, no more Android app support on other markets as well. What do you think, Pigus, on this change?
It looks cool.
Yeah, it does look pretty cool from a
Like,
UI standpoint. Pretty cool looking. And yeah, of course it's Android based. Originally it was a fork. However, they are diverging more and more from Android. So yeah, of course people try and convert their apps over to Harmony OS. And once enough apps have been converted, maybe Huawei may feel more ready to bring on over, their maybe actually end third party end Android app support outside of certain markets. And yeah, maybe slowly they will actually get rid of Android app support, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, moving on to the next story here. So, this is the wrong article. I shouldn't have put the wrong article in the wrong space. Sorry about that one, guys. We will fix that very quickly. Here it is, the Engadget article. So, Call of Duty didn't top the yearly chart in 2023. Hogwarts Legacy actually took that honor. And yeah, that's the first time since 2009 that Call of Duty hasn't been at the top of the sales charts. So, of course, Call of Duty is a very popular franchise. Modern Warfare 2 and 3, very popular games, especially Warfare 2. And yeah, it's pretty cool to see, other games actually taking the top spot here instead of just Call of Duty. And I think it's been a long time coming, because Call of Duty as a franchise has become less and less popular with certain people. And yeah, overall, there are other games out there, so it's cool to see some of them getting the honor of being first place in the sales charts. However, we're not sure if this will actually persist. Of course, next year, maybe if there wasn't a big game that will actually top the chart, maybe Call of Duty will be back up there, but we'll just have to wait and see. Do you have any thoughts, Piggis, on this? Would you want to see CS and Counter-Strike 2 on the top of the chart?
I mean, it's games like Call of Duty and Counter-Strike and other games that always are on the top played games all the time.
Although it appears Counter-Strike isn't on here. Anyway, yeah.
You
Yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, but they always catch up later, mostly.
Yeah.
But and then new games come out and they have the spotlight for a while before the main games return.
Yeah. So we'll probably see that pattern continue into the future. However, what games are the main games will of course change throughout time. So, I think Activision, or actually now Microsoft, right, will be hoping that, Call of Duty is here to stay and people will continue really loving the franchise. But we'll just have to see what new installments of the franchise are actually released, to whether this will actually continue being such a popular franchise. Have I said franchise enough? I think I have. So, now moving on to the broadband and cellular news here a bit. So here's some of the global stories. So another one from developing telecoms, a pretty cool source to be honest, giving some pretty interesting stories. So here's one from Myanmar. So Overdue? Overdue? What would you say, Piggis? Is it overdue?
Ooredoo,
Overdue?
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So sorry for people from Myanmar. I don't mean to mispronounce names. Yeah. I'm just not familiar with the pronunciation. But yes, they are launching apparently an eSIM service in Myanmar. So, of course, we've seen eSIMs roll out all over the world, different mobile networks bringing out eSIM support in different markets. So, here in the UK, the big mobile networks support eSIM. In fact, yeah, most of the MVMOs, most of the mobile virtual network operators support it as well. So, even the ones that piggyback off the other networks, yeah, even they are supporting this eSIM service. And of course, it is pretty cool to be able to swap your SIM so easily. And many, even budget devices these days, are coming with eSIM support. So yeah, it's a pretty cool feature. And although I do like traditional SIM cards, it is pretty cool to be able to swap out SIM cards so easily with these eSIMs. What do you think, Piggis? Do you like eSIMs? Do you not?
Yeah, I've never like tried it myself, no.
No. Does
But
you,
it is.
sorry.
It seems very convenient, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does your phone support eSIM?
No idea.
Probably not then, I'm guessing.
No.
I think you have is it a OnePlus 7 Pro or something? OnePlus 7
Yeah.
series. Okay, I don't think it would. My phone doesn't either. However, some of the new Pixel A models do actually support eSIM. So maybe sometime in the future I may get one of those models that may actually use eSIM. So that would be interesting.
Mm.
However, yeah, it's cool to see more places getting eSIM, and yeah, it's nice to see different networks adopting this new technology.
Wow.
Now, some bad news from Namibia. Well, bad news for Namibians because, of course, if you're a Namibian that isn't actually registered with these SIM cards, so if you haven't registered your SIM card properly, you may be disconnected apparently. So, we are seeing this in some countries where they try and implement these, ID checks and checks on identity for your SIM cards to prevent crime and such forth. However, I would say it is not really worth it to try and crack down on, on Sims without proper, without a name and details. Because, of course, it is quite helpful to just be able to buy a sim, not give all your details to, to give it to some company. And yeah, overall, it's just nice to not have to have your name associated with your phone number. So yeah, hopefully this doesn't happen in more countries. It's a pretty regressive move, in my opinion. And yeah, having to provide ID, if somebody doesn't have ID, that's going to be a major roadblock for them. Maybe they won't be able to have a phone. It could lock them out of all sorts of communication, potential, learning. It could really disadvantage people, I feel. So this is a pretty negative thing that some governments are doing. But yeah, what's the situation in Sweden like? Can you currently buy a sim from a store, just give some cash, and then just buy a top-up, and not have to worry about giving your details? Is that a thing in Sweden?
Uh,
Because yeah, in the UK you can do that. You can just go. So if in most shops, you could buy an eSIM card, an O2 SIM card, a Vodafone SIM card for like 99p. You can then buy a £10 top up or £30 or whatever you want, and then you can redeem that using your phone number. No need to actually give any details such as your name or anything like that, which is pretty cool. it does mean that if you don't give your name and stuff like that, it's less information that could be exposed in a potential data breach in the future. There's a lot of concerns when it comes to data security and potential misuse of the data. So, of course, this thing that shows that apparently 29% of SIM cards are registered in Namibia, it's not really too surprising. People are unlikely to know about this or unlikely to actually do anything about it. And of course, they do risk being cut off in the future. But overall, it's a pretty negative move, and hopefully they backtrack on this, because it's really not a good move from a civil liberties point of view. What do you think, Pigus? What do you think about this from a civil liberties point of view? Do you think this is bad?
The same as you say, like, it's bad.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to provide ID just to be able to buy a SIM card, to be honest. Like, that's just, yeah.
But also, like, it is convenient for the government and stuff to keep track of that.
Yeah, however, I'm sure the government could just track down the person anyway. Given that, if you have your phone connected to, a cellular network, it's relatively easy to tell where phones are sending messages from. So overall, you're not really that anonymous, and if you were actually doing something wrong, you'll probably get caught. And if you were using an encrypted messaging app, well, you're probably not going to get caught even if you have an ID connected. So really, I don't really see the point, aside from maybe just a small bit of extra convenience for the police and for the government. But overall, I don't think it's worth it from the civil liberties trade-off point of view. I mean, in this country, we don't technically even have ID, because, well, we have forms of ID. However, the ID card system that they tried to implement was thrown out in 2011 by the Conservative government, because, yeah, it wasn't too popular. And, yeah, it actually got thrown out, so we don't have any official ID system, although, of course, there's passports, there's vote to roll, there's all sorts of other ways that you can do it. If you apply for a mortgage, if you apply for loans, your information is probably on a database. So, yeah, there is a lot of ways that you can be tracked, of course, national insurance numbers and stuff like that. However, it isn't as direct as having ID cards, so that's one good thing, I feel. What do you think, Pigus? Any last thoughts before we continue on to the next story?
No, we can continue.
I feel like I rambled a bit there, but it was worthwhile. So yes, those are my thoughts on ID. So there we are. So the mobile operator Voxy UK. So we're moving on to the UK mobile news here. So the operator Voxy is providing free access to MoneyHub. So this is a pretty cool thing if you want 12 months of access to this financial technology platform. So it links together all of your different bank accounts using, so basically it links all of your financial stuff together, and using this Voxy offer with their drop rewards program, you can actually redeem this. However, of course, this is only for 12 months. It will not automatically renew unless you put in your bank details. However, of course, there are other alternatives to these services, and you may not actually need them. It may be convenient for some people, however, it is only for 12 months. So it is a good perk. However, you may not actually end up liking it, or you may end up just getting cut off after 12 months. So maybe it's not the best idea to use a free trial, get really used to using it, and then suddenly you cut off. So yeah, maybe that's what they're aiming for here, but it is a cool perk nonetheless. What are your thoughts, Pigus? Any interesting perks for Swedish mobile providers recently?
Mm.
Is there any perks that you can get with phone plans in Sweden?
I mean, yeah.
Any access to financial services?
Yeah,
No.
that I have not heard about.
Yes, it seems like a rather, may I say, random integration. But yeah, I suppose they've struck a deal here. Vodafone and Money Hub. Of course, you know, Voxy is a sister brand to Vodafone, so they're the ones striking the deals. And yeah, I suppose that's that. I suppose, you know, you can use it if you want to. It's a cool perk, I suppose, if you use Voxy. Already some pretty cool perks for users of that mobile network. Now, moving on here to the next story, an interesting one. I've never heard of this network before. Because I do reviews of mobile networks, I may actually check this one out. Spew Sue. Yes, I'm gonna say that. So it is a mobile virtual network operator with an agreement with EE, and they have announced that they're adding Wi-Fi calling to all UK plans. So of course, Wi-Fi calling was already a feature on most mobile networks. However, this provider has actually implemented it now. So that's pretty cool. They appear to have some pretty competitive plans when I take a look at it. So yeah, so you can get some pretty cool perks like free calls to the EU and a few other perks here. And it is a European mobile network, so that's pretty cool, I suppose. But yeah, they're adding an extra feature to their mobile network here, and they're, you know, using the existing Wi-Fi calling, I'm guessing. Now, what do you think, Pigus, about this? Have you heard of this mobile network before? Is this a thing in
No,
Sweden?
I've never heard about it.
Okay. Yeah, it's apparently a mobile network. I found an Austrian site for it as well while I was doing research on it. So, so that's interesting. Maybe they're more of a a mobile network with some European, mobile networks as well. So that's cool, I suppose. And yeah, it's cool to see Wi-Fi calling added to another mobile virtual operator.
Whoa.
Now, Virgin Media has announced that they are going to withdraw Up's full fiber. So this is bad news for customers of Up. It's quite a big mobile, quite a decently sized broadband provider. Of course, nowhere near on the level of Virgin, BT, Sky, and all of those big players. However, they were providing fiber services, and now they have, of course, been acquired by Virgin Media. And yeah, apparently they're now just going to be integrating the network into Virgin's and shut down the actual network, shut down the actual provider. And if you are currently a customer of Up, you will actually be transferred to Virgin Media. And, you know, this is sad to see from the point of view of consolidation in the UK broadband space. Because it's never good to see consolidation in the industry, especially when it's already, not particularly competitive to start with. And it will be quite annoying for those Up customers who may have actually moved away from Virgin Media to Up, and now they're getting moved back. You can see that some people are getting annoyed by this move here, and overall this won't be a popular one from Virgin. However, it does make some business sense for them to try and make more money off customers. Do you have any thoughts, Pigus?
No.
Cool. So why don't we move on to the desktop news here? So here's a story on the Windows section here. So a new preview of Windows 11 will apparently allow you to send photos from your phone to your PC without actually using the phone link app. So that's pretty cool. It's integrating more features directly into the desktop instead of relying on other apps. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not sure how many people want this feature, but it is actually relatively helpful if you have a phone and you just want to transfer, your photo over. It happens to many people. They just want to have one of their documents over from their phone or the other way around, and this is pretty helpful for that purpose. Are you currently using Windows 11, Piggus? Windows 10? What's the current situation for you? Yeah.
Well, I do run Windows 11 a bit, yeah.
Yeah. Will you try out this new preview or not?
Uh,
Do you want to get a blue screen of
I
death?
try to use Windows as little as possible, so...
Yeah, so maybe not. But this is a pretty cool looking update. Some pretty cool features here. Little quality of life improvements, I guess. And yeah, it's always nice to see, these little changes that make the desktop experience better.
If I just want a file over from my phone to my computer, I'll just connect it using USB.
Good point. However, you could just use this app. Anyway, this integration here. But yeah, let's continue on to some non-Windows news here. Maybe you'll have more thoughts on this one, Piggus. So here's the Linux news. Interestingly, no Mac stories this week. Probably some out there didn't manage to catch any. So yes, but yeah, so there's some Linux news here. So Canonical's snap for Steam is causing headaches for Valve. Apparently Valve are not recommending you actually use this Steam client because there's so many bugs in it. And yeah, overall this isn't good, is it? Trying to implement a snap version of Steam and then actually, majorly having lots of bugs in it. Overall, there's a lot of people on Ubuntu that actually use snaps and use Steam. Of course, if you're on Ubuntu, you kind of have to use snaps these days, and because of Canonical, and yeah, you're gonna if you install this version of Steam, you might not know the difference, and then you get all these bugs. You think it's Canonical's fault. Not Canonical's fault. You think it's not Canonical's fault. You think it's Valve's fault. And in fact, it is Canonical's. And yeah, overall, this is a nightmare for Canonical. This is a nightmare for Valve. But really, it's Canonical's fault. Do you have any thoughts, Piggus?
Snaps are just annoying.
Yeah, I mean, they could just implement, like, another format, like, any of the other ones. I get doing their own thing, however, it's rather a proprietary thing. So maybe not the best. Isn't the Snap Store proprietary?
Yeah, I think so.
Then again, is FlatHub proprietary?
No, I think that is open source.
Oh, okay.
The site.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the next story here. This isn't, not good news if you use snaps with Steam. Because, yeah, if you have the Steam Snap installed, may not be having the best experience right now. Maybe that's the reason why. Now,
I mean, you never have a good experience with snaps.
yeah, well, if you're just, using a version of Steam, you don't know what you're using. Maybe you're using the Snap. Maybe that's the reason why you're having a bad experience. Anyway, moving on to the next story here. So, Wine 9.0 has been released, and this is an exciting one for the Wayland fans, for the Wayland users. You're getting experimental Wayland graphics driver. You're getting a experimental Wayland graphics driver, so that is pretty cool. And yeah, pretty nice. For people on Wayland, it's a work in progress, of course. However, it is still a major step forward for users of Wayland. You no longer have to use X to have a semi-decent experience with Wine. You may now be able to use, your favorite Wayland.
Wow.
Do you have any thoughts, Pigus? Do you use Wine regularly? Do you not use Wine? I imagine not having Wayland drivers might have been not the best for users.
I mean, I use Proton, which is based on Wine, so yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's close to using Wine, but it is, of course, a fork, kind of, yeah.
I mean, I've not had that many difficulties with using it on Wayland.
However, you haven't been using Wine base, right?
Not much.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah, so it's not implemented, but it's not enabled by default, so you have to enable it in the settings. However, it's cool to see a Wayland driver anyway. If you have any thoughts on the, of course, guys, make sure to comment them in the chat. If you want to say hello, you can comment. If you want to, do whatever you want to do here, guys. And, of course, that's cool. If you want to talk in the chat, you can, of course, go over to sandronets.com/discord, talk in the Discord if you want to do that. Lots of options here to talk. So, Google is apparently laying off even more people. So, it appears that they, I don't know what the story is. I actually meant to include 2 Google stories here. Because they actually have laid off some people, I think. Yep, here's the layoff news. This is actually from last week, so I probably won't cover it. However, yeah, apparently laying off even more people here. So, Sundar Pichai has said that they are going to they're expecting more layoffs later this year, and they're telling their employees this to make sure they're ready. So, they may not need to do these job cuts. However, they are doing these to, of course, try and, maximize the amount of money they can make and the amount of, efficiency, I suppose. But of course, if you're one of these employees, this is really bad news. Because, of course, you could see your job on the chopping board here. So, yeah, if you don't want to end up with, without a job, it's not really looking good with Google. I mean, I saw a video a few days ago about how Google has turned from being a nice place to work into a not nice place to work. And that's under, the leadership of Alphabet and Sundar Pichai. And yeah, overall, I've not really heard that much positive about the Google Workplace recently. It used to be seen as a kind of model for how, how to have a nice workplace. They had slides around the workplace and all sorts of cool stuff like that to make it seem fun. However, the strategy does appear to have changed recently, with a more corporate strategy happening at Google. So it seems rather cutthroat here. It seems rather unnecessary. However, of course, they want to appease the investors. So, of course, this will do that, I suppose. Any thoughts, Pigus? Yeah, I don't know whether... I don't know whether whether there's a Google union of any sort. But yeah, they may want a union if they're gonna get laid off. But yeah, because Google does appear to be not exactly being too great when it comes to worker relations, so we'll have to see what happens there, I suppose. Anyway, apparently Notion is turning its Chrome acquisition into an integrated calendar app. So this is being implemented on macOS, Windows, and iOS, although there's no Android support yet. So they acquired this Chrome app a year ago, actually 2 years ago now, in 2022. So this is just a reskinned version of Chrome, and it was released last Wednesday. So if you like Chrome, you can now check it out inside of Notion. If you want to take some notes and you want to check your calendar, this is a pretty cool integration for people on Notion. I don't use Notion personally, however, I do know it's a very popular note-taking app. It did surprise me a year or two back. I think it was a year ago now, when I was on the London Underground and I saw an advert for Notion. I was like, oh, that's interesting. They're now paying for advertising in like the Underground. So they have clearly got quite a bit of money behind them, or at least they did back when I saw the advert. Because who's paying for underground advertising? Anyway, but yeah, it's interesting to see this. And, it's cool if you enjoy some integration within your note-taking app. Although, some people may say it's bloat, but then again, if you're using Notion, you probably don't care about bloat. Because, there are much more minimalist ways of note-taking apart from Notion. Any thoughts, Pickers?
Bloat.
So you agree it is bloat.
I mean, yeah, it is bloat, but at the same time, for most people, it's just very convenient to have everything in one place.
And overall, is it really the kind of user that, Notion has that they would care much about bloat in their app? Probably not. It's more just having a functional app, having features, and this surely does add some new features. Now, there's a new feature being implemented in Instagram here. So there is now nighttime nudges. So apparently this is aimed to reduce teens' time on the app. So it says, time to take a break. It's getting late. Maybe it's time to close it down. Instagram for the night. Apparently if you look at it after 10 p.m., it will show this. And yeah, this is interesting to try and reduce screen time potentially. Instagram is very popular with young people, and maybe this will work, probably won't know, you can just dismiss it, it's not really going to do much. However, of course, this is Meta trying to show that they do care about teen safety, and yeah, I suppose that's what they're doing here. What do you think, Piers? I don't think it's going to work. Do you?
It's not. No, I don't think so.
Nope. Yeah.
At least it looks like Meta is doing something.
Yep. It's better than just saying we don't have a problem at all, and then just go like, oh, no need here. But yeah, at least they are acknowledging there's a problem. However, who knows whether this will actually work at all? And I don't think it will, because people can just dismiss this and it's not a problem anymore. So yeah. However, it may stop some users from using it late at night. Anyway, moving on to the next story here. So, film companies and Reddit are clashing in court again over anonymous piracy comments. So you can see some of the comments here. It's some comments on Reddit. Really, should they be taking action over this? Of course, this is a part of a broader case. However, it's not great to see companies trying to sue people just over these private messages and trying to potentially expose their identities, maybe find out who they are, although they don't apparently want to pursue the individuals. It is their right to try and do stuff like this. However, it is not particularly, nice, I suppose. And of course, this could be protected under the First Amendment, potentially in the US. Because if these are US users, then, being able to say this stuff, it does come under First Amendment rights. And also, it doesn't really prove anything specifically, unless they were already, committing an offense, I suppose. Do you have any thoughts, Piers?
Yeah.
Okay. So another story here. So here's a story from Reuters here, also reported by The Verge. However, we got the Reuters coverage here. So, so Reddit is apparently seeking to do an IPO. Of course, they were previously scheduled to do an IPO in 2023. However, they have now delayed it to March this year. And, this has been quite a long time coming with the IPO, and we'll just have to wait and see whether it actually happens this time. And it's not good news, of course, for user privacy on Reddit. Of course, user data could, be sold here, not sold here, could, maybe user privacy might not be as good on Reddit in the future because of trying to make more money. Yeah, so, they are trying to make more money and be more corporate. And some people don't like that. Some people use stuff like Lemmy. And that's an interesting alternative. However, they're not really seeing as much mass adoption as Reddit has. Anyway, what are your thoughts, Piers, on this Reddit IPO? Maybe, being listed on the New York Stock Exchange or whatever. I don't think... Will they even be able to make money? Who knows? Anyway, moving on here to the next story. The last story. The last story here. So, FrostWire is apparently returning to the Google Play Store. So it's returned after it was taken down by the music industry. So apparently the Indian music industry body here apparently decided that that they did infringe on their rights, and this app was suspended because of that. So it's of course just a taunting app. Previously it had support for Nutella and stuff like that, but of course, a few years ago they did drop the Nutella base. So I have looked at this app before, and they've removed it from the Play Store. Now it's been added back, so that's good for users of FrostWire. However, there are always alternative ways of downloading apps. For example, you can download it using a third-party APK. You could download an app off the F-Droid App Store, so you could download a taunting app off there. There's all sorts of options. So really, you can still, of course, download these apps, even if they're taken off the Play Store. However, it doesn't seem particularly fair just taking off a BitTorrent app off the Play Store just because it has the potential to violate their copyright. Now, do you have any thoughts, Piers, on this? Okay, so no thoughts here. So this is a story that I wasn't originally going to cover, but I saw it and it caught my eye here, and I thought, you know what, I need to cover this, and it only actually came out today. So apparently the EU wants its own DNS resolver to block unlawful traffic. This is pretty bad news for if they try and implement this on more devices. This could be pretty bad news for internet privacy. However, of course, if this is just another DNS provider that people can choose to use, then it'll be a pretty cool addition, especially given that most DNS providers are from the US. Although there are some European alternatives, although they're mainly more hobbyist type stuff and more, as well as that, more niche stuff, effectively. So if the EU actually try and implement their own DNS resolver, it will be interesting to see how this goes. However, of course, this is argued in the article that it could be a censorship risk, and I do see that because, of course, there is always the risk of allowing the government to actually change your DNS records, that they could just use this to censor the internet and block sites they don't like. Of course, it's a pretty, pretty weak way of doing it because, of course, you can just change your DNS server pretty easily on most systems. Yeah, and even if the UI doesn't allow you to do so, you can probably edit a file to do so. So yeah, overall, it's not particularly hard to edit your DNS. However, the EU are trying to make their own DNS server here, and we'll just have to see what this DNS server will actually be like. Do you have any thoughts, Pigus? Will you be switching over to the EU and DNS?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, of course, 100%.
Yeah.
100% switching over to government DNS server.
I suppose like default ISP provided DNS would go through stuff like this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I suppose that's the idea. I mean, ISP default ones already enforce these kind of orders, so really, we'll just have to see what happens here. Maybe it'll be available to people who just want to implement it on their end. Maybe that'll be cool if you want kind of more of a kind of blocking illegal content DNS, but kind of copyright infringement and such forth, and such things, and you don't actually want to, just use an ISP one if you want more direct access. Maybe that'll be a thing. That might be interesting. However, there is, of course, the censorship risk and the kind of fear of censorship when it comes to this DNS. Have you got...
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry.
It seems like it would be more usable in like work environment scenarios.
Yeah. I could see that it being implemented there on many different systems. It could be pretty helpful, and it's a pretty interesting idea, I suppose. Anyway, do you have any other thoughts, Pigus? Any other stories? Any other things you want to say? Do you want to shout anything out? This is the time. You don't want to say anything? Okay, then. So, thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and share. You can check out the previous week's show. Make sure to subscribe if you want to actually see this show. Every week, we bring the tech news. You can discuss with us. You can talk with us. And you can, of course, message me with your favorite tech news stories, stuff you want to be mentioned in the show. If you want to come on here and actually be interviewed, you can do so. So yeah, reach out to me if you want to do that. And of course, you can also go to sandrolinux.com/discord to join the Discord. And then you can go to the verified channel and get verified, so you can actually access this Discord channel. And thank you guys once again for watching. I want to say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
And I think that is it for this week, guys. Next week, hopefully there's some good stories. And I'll just see you then. Adios.